It was Saturday night, and I was finally home after a long day. Living alone in a secluded house has its perks, but it also has its drawbacks. I always knew the place had a dark side, but when I heard those banging noises coming from upstairs, I wasn't sure if I was imagining things or if there really was someone up there. It was almost midnight, and the sound of something dragging made me get out of bed. At first, I thought it was just a rat or some other goddamn critter, but then the noises started getting clearer and more distinct. I tried to ignore it and go back to sleep, but the feeling that something was wrong was overwhelming. I got up, went downstairs, and headed upstairs to check it out. Everything looked normal, but something told me that something was out of place. Things were in the wrong spots, like someone had been rummaging through the house. The next morning, after a coffee that didn't make me feel any better, I started noticing strange things. Objects that I was sure I'd put in specific places were in other spots. I grabbed my phone and checked the security camera I had installed. Nothing out of the ordinary, just me coming and going. But during the night, something caught my eye. The camera picked up movement in the upstairs hallway. That was impossible. The only other person who should have been here was the delivery guy who came by in the morning, and he didn't stick around past an hour in the evening. I spent the entire day checking every corner of the house. What I found was something I never expected: footprints in the attic, and weird food hidden under the floorboards. This wasn't just a noise issue anymore. Someone had been living here without me knowing. And worst of all, who was this person and why were they here? The situation only got worse when I started finding personal items of mine that I hadn't left lying around. My hairbrush, a pair of shoes, and even a book I had lost. Everything was in the attic. I was absolutely sure I hadn't left anything up there. I started researching the house and found out that the previous owner had a history of odd behavior and had mysteriously disappeared a few years ago. One night, while I was on the couch, I heard something again. It wasn't just the usual noise. It was something that made me feel the presence of someone. Doors creaking, footsteps on the stairs. The truth was glaringly clear. Someone was here, watching. The feeling of being watched was unbearable. With every noise, I wondered if the person was coming back to finish what they'd started. I didn't know what to do, whether to leave or face the situation. The fact was, I felt like an intruder in my own home. I flew to my dad's place and never went back to that house. I put the house up for sale. It sold quickly, but every 2 months after being sold, it's put up for sale again.
After a ridiculous argument with my wife, I decided the best thing to do was to take a walk. Nothing like a night stroll to clear your head, right? I left the house around 10 p.m. with no specific destination, just needing some space. The area around our house is pretty isolated, full of trails and woods. I didn't think much of it at the time. I just wanted to escape the fight and have some time to myself. But things got weird fast. I got lost. I always thought I knew the area well, but it felt like every tree and shadow was conspiring against me. Half an hour later, I was completely disoriented. The darkness and silence were almost suffocating. I started to get scared. Every step seemed to echo through the forest, and I couldn't find my way back. After a desperate walk trying to figure out where I was, I started to see some lights in the distance. Thinking I might find a way out or a clue to get back home, I headed towards the lights. What I found was something I never expected. I was at the edge of a clearing and saw a group of people gathered around a fire. They were dressed weirdly, in robes and things that weren't common for any normal gathering. In the center of the clearing, there was a calf tied up, and it looked like they were in the middle of some sort of ritual. I didn't know if it was some kind of cult or just a group of people with weird interests, but the scene was horrific. I hid behind some trees, just watching. What I saw was a brutal sacrifice, something I never imagined I'd see in broad daylight, let alone at night in the woods. They were performing a ritual involving the calf, and what was happening was simply disturbing. The blood, the screams, the heavy atmosphere, it made me feel a kind of terror I'd never felt before. I knew I had to get out of there as quickly as possible. The last thing I wanted was to be seen by these people. I had no idea what they'd do if they caught me, and the feeling of being watched was unbearable. With my heart in my throat, I started to sneak away. The forest seemed even darker now, and every step felt louder than the last. I finally found my way back home, but the experience left a mark. I couldn't sleep properly that night, and the image of that ritual is burned into my mind. Every time I close my eyes, I see the calf and the group of people around the fire. I'm not sure if anyone would believe me if I told them what I saw, so I decided to keep it to myself.
So, we were having this epic party at Mike's place. You know, the usual, drinking, laughing, and being dumb. Around midnight, someone had the brilliant idea to play Truth or Dare. Everyone was buzzed and thought it'd be a blast, so we all gathered in the living room, ready for some fun. At first, it was just stupid stuff. Tell the person to your left your most embarrassing moment, or dare them to sing a song. You know, harmless crap. But then, things started getting weird. Someone dared Jenna to go outside and knock on a stranger's door, which was a little unsettling but nothing too crazy. The game picked up steam quickly. The dares got more twisted, and the truth started unearthing stuff we all would have preferred stayed buried. I was starting to feel uneasy. We were all friends, but the way people were reacting, it felt like we were seeing each other in a new, disturbing light. By the time it was Greg's turn, things had really gone off the rails. He had to spill a secret, and instead of something minor, he confessed to something seriously screwed up. Apparently, he'd been cheating on his girlfriend with someone from work. That threw everyone into a frenzy. The atmosphere turned thick. Everyone was tense, and the dares started crossing lines. Someone dared Lisa to call her ex and say some messed up stuff, which she did, laughing nervously. But the phone call ended with Lisa breaking down. She hung up crying, and the room was silent, except for the drunken chatter that didn't mask the tension. Then it got worse. Greg dared Mike to drive to a specific location and steal something from someone's yard. Mike, in his drunken bravado, went along with it. He came back looking pale and shaken, clutching a strange, old-looking box. He wouldn't open it, though. He just said it was cursed and tossed it in the corner. We were all pretty shaken at this point, but no one wanted to be the party pooper. When it was Jenna's turn again, she was dared to reveal the worst thing she'd ever done. She hesitated and then broke down, saying something about a serious accident she'd been involved in, one that wasn't her fault but had devastating consequences. People started getting really quiet, and then Mike's box came back into play. Someone dared Greg to open it. He fumbled with the lock, and when he finally got it open, the room was filled with a terrible smell. Inside was a collection of creepy, old trinkets and what looked like a blood-stained shirt. That's when it hit the fan. We all started panicking, shouting, and fighting over what to do. People were accusing each other of things, and it felt like we were unraveling right there. The game had become a nightmare, with trust shattered and tempers flaring. The dares turned into threats, and no one knew how to end that shitty night.
Sign up here to reach our goal of 100 subscribers.